Hi, welcome to the bathtub, where when you hear this iconic music, you see this iconic parakeet, you know that we're having another exciting, hard-hitting episode of Stop the Music so we don't get sued. Budgie Noir. Budgie Noir is the fill in for Puppy Noir when Lucky won't come out of the closet because she's scared of something. Lucky gets scared of everything. She doesn't want to do stuff with me anymore. So that's her. She wants to be near Lucy all the time. So Dodo, she'll be with me all the time. This is what she does all day. This is her whole reason for living is jumping on my head, and it's really annoying. Anyway, it's Budgie Noir. We're talking about it's a hard-hitting show about guns, gats, malls, and hard living. Dodo walked into my office one day like two tall, feathery glasses of water, and she got me very excited to see her. And now I'm going to try to put you away. Why don't you go play with your coconut? She's got a coconut she plays with. And today on Budgie Noir, formerly known as Puppy Noir, because puppies, nothing goes together like parakeets and two-fisted gat-firing action in paperback noir, right? We're going to talk about someone we haven't talked about in a few years, John D. MacDonald, an old favorite of mine, an old favorite of many of my bathing buddies out there. I did a pointless talk about one of my pointless talks. John D. MacDonald is not pointless, but one of my own unscripted and not very articulate summaries of my affection for John D. MacDonald about 3 or 4 years ago. And I think it's probably more people watch that. I still get people writing me about how much they like John D. MacDonald and getting mad at me if I said something negative about John D. MacDonald. And he's got a lot of fans out there, which I was glad to see, because he is one of the great. There's an argument that he is the greatest paperback noir writer of all time. He wrote so many novels, so many different. He wrote a series, a kind of detective series with Travis McGee, which we've talked about. Dodo, you're going to have to go in the cage pretty quick. Come here. He did the Travis McGee series, which many of you know, and he's about a guy living on the busted flush, and Travis goes around and recovers things. He brings back people's stolen goods and so forth, and he keeps half of it. Can you believe this bird? She will not stop. Go up there. I'm going to put you in a cage. Now she's just showing off. And he does the Travis McGee, and then he did a lot of just kind of one-off thrillers, paperback thrillers. I think many of them were paperback originals. And the last time, I can't remember what I talked about. I think I talked about the first 3 Travis McGee novels, which I reread a few years back, and I wanted to kind of reread through the series. I have a kind of brief summary of my affection for John D. MacDonald. I think he writes the best paragraphs, the best narrative paragraphs in the business. There's no one's better than him. Ross Thomas, I think of Ross Thomas as being up there, but writing these beautiful, and actually James Lee Burke, who I don't know as well, writes some incredible narrative paragraphs, and he writes these great kind of cultural criticism, these kind of what America means to Travis McGee sort of paragraphs, or just kind of these visions of the way America operates that are really quite chillingly effective and quite sharp, and they're just beautifully written. He just writes beautiful paragraphs. I sometimes get a little tired. His plots don't always work for me, and a couple of people have criticized my criticism of the John D. MacDonald plots, which I can understand. That's fair. But at the same time, I sometimes follow the Travis McGee's are a little too formulaic. They tend to start off with he meets some endangered damsel, some beautiful girl who's endangered, and she's thrown off a pier, or something's happened. Some woman's been often brutalized by some kind of evil man, and Travis gets involved with her, and then he starts to explore the case, and that's always really good. The way when Travis McGee goes to these houses and looks at the people who lives inside them, and finds out the kind of secret lives of people, which is the whole detective story. The most fascinating part is going into these hidden lives, mostly in Florida, though the new one, The Quick Red Fox, spends a lot of time in the new one. The one I've just read spends a lot of time in L.A., so he travels around. And then in the course of investigating and following through on this investigation, Travis engages in a long passage. Usually, I think of the sexual healing passage. There's always like this passage, like about 2/3 of the way through the book, where he and the damaged woman or the girl who's helping him have this long sexual thing, which is told in kind of slightly romanticized language. And it's about him kind of bringing her back to life through sexual love or something like that. It's kind of the most annoying part of the Travis McGee books. But in a good one, and I would say that the one I just read, The Quick Red Fox, it goes by pretty quickly. And it's not quite as corny as it is in some of the other books. I also find that the end of the books is that he tends to, there's some evil bad guy who damages women, and there's a kind of show off between him and Travis that sometimes goes on a little too long for me. I'm not always as happy with the endings of many thrillers. Many thriller writers, I find their endings are the weakest part, and most genre writers as well. But I would say that the one I've just read, this is the fourth in the series, The Quick Red Fox. I'll be honest, I don't know if I read it 3 years ago. If you go back and see my first version, I may have talked about it before. I completely forgot it. Anyway, I completely forgot this book, 1964, and The Quick Red Fox is a really good book to start with in the Travis McGee series. It's just short. It's just short enough and just long enough. It doesn't get too long as sometimes they do. The investigation, which is always the best part of the Travis McGee's, where he goes to meet all these people and see how they live, and comments on the way they live, is always the best part. And this is basically that. We kind of follow a daisy chain while Travis is investigating this a movie star who got filmed in an orgy. So that's basically what he's recovering, and he's trying to get back this film. And in the course of it, he meets all these kind of drifty hippie beatnik types from the '60s, and ski instructors with fake accents and so forth. And it's really it's easily one of the more enjoyable Travis McGee's, and I would really recommend this as a place to start if you don't want to read them in sequence, as I've been doing. The Deep Blue Goodbye, the first Travis McGee, is also an excellent place to start. Anyway, I just want to read two. I tagged 2 paragraphs here, and I think I'll just read one of them. Which one will I read? And I already forget what they are. Here he does a very good job, like Ross Thomas does, of describing a neighborhood. And this is a place, Santa Rosita. I think he makes that term up. A lot of this book takes place in California, and he talks about this sort of place where certain types of people live. I'll just read the first paragraph, and you can get a sense of the flavor of his sentences. Santa Rosita was a stunted version of the Santa Barbara code of existence. 3 industries, electronics, plastics, and tourists, and squeezed the bejesus out of all 3. It was sharing the big boom boom. The incomparably dull tract houses, glitteringly new, were marching out across the hills, cluttered with identical station wagons, identical children, identical barbecues, identical tastes in flowers and television. You see, Virginia, there really is a Santa Rosita, full of plastic people in plastic houses in areas noduled by the vast basketry of their shopping centers. But do not blame them for being so tiresome and so utterly satisfied with themselves, because, you see, there is no one left to tell them what they are and what they really should be doing. These are just really beautiful and really acidic little commentaries on kind of American consumerism and suburban life. And he does it just as well with kind of going into wealthy homes, dealing with wealthy characters and with the kind of spoiled children of the wealthy. Anyway, this was a kind of pleasure all the way through. I enjoyed the Quick Red Fox, and I enjoyed it all the way through to the end. And I want to carry on with John D. MacDonald. I also read. I always want to kind of like balance them out with some of the hard-boiled novels that he wrote. And he wrote these for many years before he turned to the Travis McGee books, which did him well. 1955, and I had read that this was a good one of his, and I have mixed feelings about this one. It's called Cry Hard, Cry Fast. Came out in 1955. It's put on. I saw it mentioned on a couple lists of 10 best hard-boiled novels by John D. MacDonald. It's an odd book for John D. MacDonald, but at the same time, as I've said, he's almost like the perfect... If I knew someone trying to learn how to write, I often gave John D. MacDonald to people. And I remember Harlan Ellison once telling me, if you want to learn to write, throw away the stupid Finnegan's Wake and go get some John D. MacDonald and Donald Westlake books, which I actually did at the time when I was 16. This is a very interesting book. He's quite experimental. And it's basically the first half of the book is about a big traffic accident somewhere, I forget, somewhere in Florida. And the first 6-8 chapters describe all the different people that go into this accident and describe the accident from all their points of view and what their lives are like. And there's a kind of suburban family, and there's a couple of lovers who are just getting together, and there's a married couple who are starting to break apart. And there's a woman who's leaving a relationship, and then there's a wealthy guy who's kind of in the middle of the whole accident. Anyway, one of the things that's interesting about it is how quickly and how well. I recommend just seeing this for people. Many of my students have trouble with understanding point of view. He shifts point of view 6 or 8 times in the opening 40, 50 pages. And you always know when he's shifted, and you always get to know this character. And within a paragraph, I won't read another passage, but I have a few passages in here I liked, just to show how quickly he can establish a new character and a whole family relationship, a whole history of a character. So for that reason, Cry Hard, Cry Fast is almost like a nice little lesson in how to change point of view. I found the first half kind of boring after a while, because it's just all these different people, and they're all going into the accident, and it was so many characters. I'm thick, so I had trouble keeping it all apart. And then, of course, there's also some gangsters in the middle of this accident who are robbing a bank. And then the second half is kind of an interesting analysis of how this terrible tragedy, when all these people die, is kind of co-opted by the insurance companies. And he describes the insurance vultures coming in and trying to rip everybody off and trying to make deals and trying to make sure they don't have to pay anything. And he describes that really well too. But again, it goes on. We go around to all the different characters. But it's quite and as far as the actual fragility of these cars in the 50s before Nader, and how easily these people could be crippled and destroyed by this accident, it's a pretty interesting historical novel as well. But I found it a little slow. It wasn't my favorite John D. MacDonald thriller, and yet I'm kind of glad I read it. So Cry Hard, Cry Fast, definitely a good place to start is The Quick Red Fox. And I still think that The Deep Blue Goodbye, the very first Travis McGee, is a good place to start as well. But you can go back and check my work and go back and... I don't remember what I talked about the first time I talked about John D. MacDonald. But he is one of those writers I like to read every so often, and maybe I'll get back to some more Travis McGee. Happy bathing, but Budgie Noir, we'll try to get Lucky back in here soon. And we'll let you out with the music until we get sued. Bye.